Hello and welcome back to Build Your Economic Power. And today we're going to talk about why most adults stop building after 30 years of age. All right, so let's get started. Remember when you were 18? I remember. I was about to graduate high school. Life was good. Unfortunately, I had a tragedy in my family. My grandfather died in February of 2018, and 2018, when I was 18. And then I went ahead and graduated high school in June of 2018. I was hoping he would have stuck around till then, but he couldn't hold on. And that's life sometimes, unfortunately. And death, because death comes out of nowhere. So let's get started here. When you're 18, you imagine you're building something, right? But when you're 22, you think about starting something. Your mind's very active. You're very imaginative. It's great. When you're 25, you still believe you might do it. But then somewhere after 30, most adults stop. Why is that? They don't announce it. They don't consciously decide it, but they stop building. Why? Not because they're incapable. And if you don't understand the shift, you'll never reverse it. So the transition years we're going to talk about here. Let's talk about what happens between age 25 and 35. You've got a mortgage, possibly. A lot of people are in rent nowadays. They don't even get a mortgage until they're in their 40s. It's crazy because everything is so wildly expensive, if they can even afford a mortgage. And when you're between 25 and 35, rent increases too. You got kids, car payments, insurance, stability pressure, career ladder focus. Your brain shifts from what could I build to what could I lose? It's a psychological pivot. When imagination gets replaced by risk analysis, building really slows down. Not because you're immature, because you're afraid of instability. That's the reason. Instability is a heartache. It can become a heartache. I remember when I was 26, I got laid off. And that scared me. That was the first time in my life that I got laid off of a job. I basically panicked. I walked around. I remember walking around the block thinking, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I had some tears I had shed. It's my first layoff. I didn't know what the heck just happened. Okay, I had a family. I had two kids at the time, stepchildren. And I was like, and my ex-wife, she wasn't that well health-wise. So I just remember I was like, man, this is like not good. This sucks. What am I going to do? So I'll tell you what I did. I turned on my entrepreneurial light bulb. I started networking. I opened my own company, and it was a communications company doing telecom. And what I did was I coordinated. I started to build out a price list of what I was going to do, exactly what I did at my job. I faxed people my price list. I emailed people my price list. My old company that laid me off hired me, believe it or not, as a contractor. Okay, that was pretty cool. My prices were the same prices that they were charging, and they hired me as a contractor. It was the weirdest thing. Other people hired me as a contractor. I had a friend of mine who had some side work for me as well, hired me as a contractor. We had a flat price, him and I. It was pretty cool. But that didn't last because eventually what happened was I started getting nervous. I started getting scared. What happens if I get too big? Well, I don't want to be rich. I had all these thoughts and these fears come in my mind. And then somebody called me out and said, hey, one of my companies I was working with as a contractor, they said, we want to know if you have insurance just in case something happens. So we need your business license and your insurance. Now, I had a business license, but I didn't have insurance. And so I said, I'm just a small company. I do this on my own and I do contracts and so forth. I don't have insurance. Well, you know what happened? That made that company not want to pay me. They owed me like I think it was $800 or $900, and they didn't want to pay me. I had to call week after week. They didn't want to pay me. It was ridiculous. So I finally said, you know what? I'm coming up there. It was about 40 minutes away. I'm coming up there. I'm expecting my check, and I'm going to wait in the office until I get my check. And that's exactly what happened. I went up there, said, okay, I'm here. I'm expecting my check. You guys owe me whatever it was, $800, $900, might even be $700. I don't remember, but it was in the high hundreds. Okay? So they wrote the check. Thank you. Have a nice day. That was it. Our business literally concluded. Because some people, when you open your own business as well, they might try to stiff you. That's just the way business is in the business world. So you learn a lot of good things. You learn what to do, what not to do, so on and so forth. But the point of it is you're allowing yourself to have some freedom. You're allowing yourself to go out there and say, you know what? This might work. This might not work. But if you start being successful, do not start bulking at fear. Well, what happens if I get rich? First of all, I didn't even know what it was like to be rich. So why am I scared to think, oh, I'm scared because I might be rich? That is like the stupidest, dumbest, idiotic thing ever, to think those thoughts, especially at a young age. Like, isn't it every young man and every young woman's dream to be rich? Maybe not all, but anyway, let's get on with the point here. So, the stability mindset, when we're in our jobs, we have the stability. It feels responsible. And it is, to a degree, it is responsible. It is responsibility. But here's the trap. You start optimizing for preservation instead of expansion. You protect income instead of growing income. You protect comfort instead of building capacity. And slowly you shrink your risk tolerance. You say, I'll start when things calm down. But they never calm down in a job. Think about it. Jobs just, everything gets bigger and bigger, more responsibility. Right? Responsibility, it just doesn't disappear. It compounds. So you postpone your activation on when you're going to be an entrepreneur, when you're going to be an investor, when you're going to be a stock trader, broker, whatever, for years, absolute years, and you don't take chances. It's crazy. It's basically fear disguised as maturity. Let me say something uncomfortable here. A lot of adults call fear being realistic. They say, I'm too old for that. I have responsibilities. That's risky. That's for younger people. I heard one guy tell me he was so good at his job, some telephone tech. He's probably retired a long time ago, about 20, 25 years ago. You know what he told me? He says, I'm not into sales. Because I said, dude, you know so much. You can open your own company and be very successful. Oh, I'm not into sales. Salespeople are sleazy, blah, 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 whatever. That's what he thought. Salespeople are sleazy. Well, let me tell you something. Did you sell to your employer that you can do the job for them? You sure did. During that interview, you said all the sales presentations, whether you realize it or not, to your employer, if you BS them or not, to tell them basically, hire me, I'm the best. What do you think sales are? Sales are saying, buy this product, it's the best. Or buy my services, it's the best. You did the same thing. Just you convinced an employer that you were the best. They believed you. They hired you. You sold them. They bought. It's the same thing, guys and girls. Seriously. You just have to get your mind wrapped around sales is not a bad thing. And here's the truth about it. About building a business and stuff. Building doesn't require recklessness. It requires structure. You don't need to quit your job. You don't need to gamble your savings or go to the stupid casino. Stay away from casinos if you're going there. They're a freaking ripoff. They're a business designed to take your money. Believe me, I've wasted way too much money in places like that. And somebody taught me to gamble when I was very young. I'm not mentioning who. Anyway, you need controlled activation. The fear isn't about the risk that you have, that fear. The fear is about losing predictability And predictability, obviously, it feels safe, even when it's limiting. The comfort trap. Let's do this, okay? Comfort is dangerous, not because it feels good, because it feels permanent. Being comfortable is dangerous because when you're comfortable, next thing can happen, lay off, get fired. You don't like your boss. You don't like what's going on. You get frustrated. You quit. You say something to another employee. They don't like it because they got their California emotions hurt. I call it being California offended. Okay? Whatever it is, somebody got offended. Next thing you know, you're out the door because you got comfortable with your situation. It's not cool, folks. Being comfortable, it feels permanent. You get predictable income, predictable schedule, predictable stress, predictable limitations, and you adapt to that. You tell yourself, this is just life. But here's the quiet cost. Your imagination atrophies. You stop asking, what else could I build? And you start asking, how do I maintain this? Because I like this. I'm going to do 20 years with my company, 30 years for my company. I like this. I like their 401k. I like my team members. I like it. So, maintenance mode is basically survival mode. And survival mode kills expansion. You were born to create. God built you to create something in your life that only you can do. Even if you open up a business and you're just selling like water bottles or whatever it is, your water bottles, you think you're in competition with the next company, you're not. God created you to be you and sell your product to people that only you can sell your product to people. And it may be better than your competitor one day, by the way. So let's talk about the economic consequences of basically being comfortable and after 30. When adults stop building after 30, three things happen. Income plateaus, risk tolerance drops, dependency increases. And then before you know it, you're 40, and then you're 50, fully dependent on one employer, one paycheck, one income, one system. That is not stability. That's concentration risk. And concentration risk is very, very dangerous. So here's the good news, the reversal. Building doesn't have an age limit. Look at the guy from Kentucky Fried Chicken, Colonel Sanders. I believe Colonel Sanders was in his 60s when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken. Imagine that. Isn't that cool? And there are a ton of other entrepreneurs who started late in life. It's okay. When I was going to college, check this out. When I was going to college to study for my bachelor's of science in business management, there was a girl, I will never forget her. She was in her, I think it was 50s or 60s. Yeah, 60s it was. I'm not going to mention her name. But we were looking at her. We're all in our 20s. We're like, what? She goes, hey, I might be older, but you know what? It's never too late to get your education. Which totally was like, wow, look at this girl. She is just motivated. And there's a reason now that I think about it why that lady was there to motivate us young folk and for me to tell the story of her. I don't know if she's still alive or not, but God bless her if she is. I think that's great that somebody that at that age in her 60s, and here we are in our young buck 20s thinking we know everything, and she's telling us it's never too late to get educated. That's awesome. Okay? So remember, building doesn't have an age limit. You don't stop dreaming because you're mature. I mean, come on, right? You stop dreaming because you're scared. And fear is manageable if you structure it. Instead of asking, how do I build something massive? Ask, What can I activate in 5 hours?